Annie's mood had drastically changed ever since she started getting candy from the old man. Initially, her father didn't think much of it. It was just a sweet old man doing something nice, but he had no idea what kind of ulterior motives the old man harbored. There was more to it than just being kind, but by the time he'd realized, it would be too late. The old man gave off the sweetest persona, but that's when Harry first felt something. It was a paternal feeling, and a bad one at that. He suddenly started to doubt whether or not the man was a good character. It was on their last visit that he noticed it. It was the way the old man smiled at his daughter. Could it have been predatory rather than innocent? Harry knew that he had to do something to prove the man's innocence or his guilt if it came down to that. He needed to find a way to find out the truth, but the drastic measures he'd take would change everything. He decided that the only way to find out the truth was to experience things exactly the same way as his daughter. The next time they went to the store, the man did his usual routine and gave Annie some free candy. That's when Harry asked the important question, "Do you mind if I have some too?" "Oh, well, candy's only for kids," he said with a chuckle. It seemed like a convenient excuse. Why didn't he want him to taste the candy? He needed to find a way to try it. Harry was trying his best to figure out a way to try the candy that was being fed to his daughter every week. He saw his daughter hadn't finished hers when they got in the car to go home, but before he could ask her to share, he was distracted by something odd. His phone started ringing, but he had no idea who was going to be on the other end of the receiver. Harry didn't normally answer calls, but his gut told him to do it. He decided to answer the phone, but the man on the other side explained who he was. He was a co-worker of the old man, and he had something important to tell Harry. He'd searched his storage locker and found something that would change their lives forever. Harry Jensen was a family man who loved nothing more than spoiling his daughter rotten. He knew that she wouldn't be young forever and had to treat her while she was still interested and curious about the world around her. But he had no idea that he'd make a grave mistake letting someone who looked kind into his daughter's life. At the age of 9, Annie was still curious about the world around her. She looked forward to Saturdays when her father was off of work and could take her to experience more of the world. He showed her how grocery shopping worked. She was amazed at all the things for sale around her. When it came to the candy section, she wanted everything she could see. Harry bought her a single chocolate bar, but he couldn't afford to spoil her anymore when he was already buying dinner for the whole family and couldn't afford too many luxuries. The little girl was saddened that she couldn't have more, but she seemed to understand. It broke Harry's heart a little to have to say no to his little girl, but he had no idea what was about to happen. After Harry had found all the groceries he needed for the week, they headed for the checkout. But Harry saw something he couldn't believe. He'd never been to this particular store before, but he liked the look of it. The man behind the counter wasn't something he expected. The store clerk was an elderly man far past his retirement age, but it was what he did next that he didn't expect. The old man greeted Harry with a smile. He could tell he was a veteran from his old jacket that hung behind him. "Hi there, I've never seen you here before. Welcome to my store." Harry was surprised by the kindness but enjoyed it all the same. Then the old man's eyes twinkled, especially when he saw who Harry had brought into his store. He stared at the little girl who was hiding shyly behind her father, but he'd coax her out. "And who might this be?" the old man said with a broad grin. Little Annie didn't want to come out, but neither she nor her father knew what kind of tricks the old man had up his sleeve. "Well, now, if you don't want to come out and say hello, that's okay, but you won't get any candy if you hide away like that," he said as he opened a jar at the counter and pulled out a small piece of packaged candy. The prospect of free candy took Annie right out of her shell. With a nod from her father, she stepped forward to take a single piece of candy. The clerk smiled and said, "There now, wasn't so bad, was it?" Harry normally wouldn't let strangers give his daughter candy, but the old man seemed nice and he wasn't going anywhere. Harry appreciated what the old man did, and after he rang up his groceries, they headed home. Little Annie ate her piece of candy immediately and saved her chocolate bar for later. The little girl was satisfied and happy, but her behavior drastically changed for the rest of the afternoon. She seemed different. Harry had never seen her like it before. What had caused it? Also, if you have not done so already, please subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell to get inspired by these real-life stories every day. Now, back to the story. Annie always returned to normal after a few hours, so Harry didn't think too much of it. That wasn't until his next stop at the grocery store. He returned the following Saturday with his daughter in tow. When he checked out, the clerk greeted him warmly. Annie jumped up and down as he pulled out not one but 2 pieces of candy this time. "Here you go," he said with a smile again. Just as before, when Annie ate the candy she was given, she was acting differently. Now Harry was sure of it. The candy was the catalyst that made her so strange for a few hours. That's when Harry started suspecting that something might not be all good and well. He needed to find out the truth no matter what it took. He needed to protect his daughter at all costs. The next time Harry went to the store, he saw another face. It wasn't the old man. He was much younger and seemed far less friendly, but this time when Annie jumped up and down for candy, he shook his head. "I'm sorry, little lady, but I don't give out free candy," the new clerk said. Then he seemed to think of something before asking Harry a strange question. "Sir, we're having a special promotion for all your groceries. To enter a chance to win free groceries, write down your phone number." Harry didn't want to pass up the chance of something free and wrote it down. As they started leaving the store, the old man popped out of the back room. "I hope my assistant helped you," he said. Harry reassured the old man that he had been helped all right. This time Annie didn't get any candy, but Harry was okay with that. He wanted to see how she would act without it. Maybe it was just the hype of Saturdays that made her act differently. He was about to find out the truth. When they got home, Harry watched his daughter throughout the day, but that's when he finally understood what was going on. Annie was acting completely normal and not strange this time around. He was convinced that the candy had something to do with it, but he had no idea what kind of person the old clerk was. The old man gave off the sweetest persona, but that's when Harry first felt something. It was a paternal feeling, and a bad one at that. It was on their last visit that he noticed it. It was the way the old man smiled at his daughter. Harry knew he had to do something to prove the man's innocence or his guilt if it came down to that. He decided the only way to find out the truth was to experience things exactly the same way as his daughter. The next time they went to the store, the man did his usual routine and gave Annie some free candy. That's when Harry asked the important question, "Do you mind if I have some too?" "Oh, well, candy's only for kids," he said with a chuckle. It seemed like a convenient excuse. Why didn't he want him to taste the candy? He needed a way to find it. But before he could ask Annie to share, he was distracted by his phone ringing. He had no idea who was going to be on the other side of the receiver, though. Harry didn't normally answer calls, but his gut told him to do so. The man on the other side explained who he was. He was the old man's coworker, and he had something important to tell Harry. He searched his storage locker and found something that would change their lives forever. The coworker on the phone told Harry that he was concerned about the old man. He found some questionable things inside his locker in the store, but Harry had a lot of questions. Then it all became clear. It was the assistant from the shop. Had he gotten his number from the promotion? Was there even a promotion, or was it just a ploy to call him? "I was cleaning up the shop when I decided to open his locker. I didn't mean to snoop, but I saw something I couldn't ignore. I felt obligated to call you and let you know what was happening," the assistant said over the phone. Harry felt his pulse start to race. He was seconds away from learning the man's true motives behind everything. The young man cleared his throat and said, "I found something I couldn't ignore. I thought that you should know since he interacts with your daughter. Inside his locker, I found lots of photos of a little girl." Harry shuddered at the words. He knew he had to confront the old man before he did something drastic. The next day, Harry paid the shop a visit without his daughter even knowing. He went alone to confront the man who could have hurt his daughter if he wasn't careful. "I know about the photos. The jig is up," Harry said as he slammed his fists on the counter. But the old man did the unexpected. He broke down crying. Did he know that he couldn't get away with what he'd done? "She was my whole world," he said after the last of his tears dried up. Harry recoiled. What did he mean? Then he explained everything. He had a granddaughter who tragically passed away a few years ago. He kept her photos in his locker to remember her. That's when Harry knew that he had misjudged the man. He apologized for accusing the old man of the unthinkable.